Welcome to the cutting edge of the global awakening.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex.
Well, it looks like the North Tower of the World Trade Center has just completely collapsed.
The U.S. dollar's status as the preeminent reserve currency is under attack.
This is a mathematical fact. Tens of trillions of dollars are being extracted from the United States of America.
You really want the truth? Then just follow the money.
Welcome to Follow the Money Radio, a broadcast dedicated to your personal, spiritual, and financial liberty. And now, here's your voice of reason in the midst of global chaos, economist and best-selling author, Jerry Robinson.
Friends, welcome to the only radio broadcast dedicated to bringing you more truth packed into 1 hour than the mainstream media gives you all week long. You have found it. You're listening to Follow the Money Weekly Radio. We're on the web at www.ftmdaily.com. We have a great show lined up for you this morning. We have 3 interviews. Very first interview is going to be with our good friend, precious metals advisor, Tom Cloud. Did you see gold this week? Down 4% alone on Friday, 5% down for the week, breaching the $1,500 mark, dropping all the way down to $1,491 on Friday. Good news, it closed at $1,501 at the end of the trading day, which is good that it closed above $1,500, but still, how did gold get down to $1,500? I mean, don't we have missiles that may have nuclear warheads on the Korean Peninsula? Don't we have Japan doubling the monetary base in the next year or two? Don't we have the Federal Reserve printing money like it's going out of style? Don't we have investors waiting in line at the U.S. Mint just to get silver eagles? I mean, the fundamentals for gold and silver are intact. They have not changed. Nevertheless, we are seeing pretty large sell-off. We're going to get into some of the reasons behind it. Tom Cloud's going to be joining us. Those of you who don't know him, he is a precious metals advisor, been in the business for 35 years. He's my go-to guy to find out what's happening with gold and silver. So we got some good information on that front. Plus, we have a webinar coming up with Tom. We'll tell you about that later in the program. That's coming up next Tuesday. So be sure to register for that. Those seats go quick, and the space is limited. So be sure to sign up if you're interested in attending that live. We will have a replay available for those, but you won't be able to ask questions there, obviously. You just get to listen. But that will be free, and it'll be available later next week. Our second interview is going to be with quite a guy. This is Nolan Watson. He's the CEO of Sandstorm Gold Limited, also the CEO of Sandstorm Metals and Energy. If you're not familiar with these two companies, I know that some of you in our FTM Insider area are familiar with Sandstorm Gold because we have held it in the PACE investment portfolio in the past. Now, I personally own shares of Sandstorm Metals and Energy. I'm telling you that as a disclosure, and I'll also mention it at the end of the interview again. So this is really for educational and informational purposes only. And I got to tell you, the Sandstorm Metals and Energy stock, it's a very cheap penny stock, but it is one that I've been following now for several months. And I just happen to believe that they have a very interesting business model. We'll discuss that in the interview. That's coming up. Nolan Watson, Sandstorm Gold CEO. Then finally, we have a documentary filmmaker from Canada who's going to be joining us in segment 3. His name is Adam Makarenko, and he is an indie filmmaker. He is producing a film on something very interesting that's occurring up next to Detroit, Michigan, and also Windsor, Ontario. Those two cities kind of jut up next to each other. And there's an island up there called Zug Island. Well, residents have been leaving the area because they complain about this mysterious, strange noise, small, annoying, frustrating hum that just won't go away, and it gets worse at night. So Adam is actually a filmmaker. He lives up in Canada, and he decided, he saw this on YouTube. He saw all the people complaining and the reports about this crazy noise that was going on, and no one knew where it was coming from. So Adam jumped in his car, drove down to Windsor, and he sensed it. He felt it. And he noticed that it was coming from Zug Island. It's a big industrial plant that's surrounded by Homeland Security guards. And so anyway, Adam's going to be here to share his upcoming documentary. He's calling it Zug Island, the story of the Windsor Hum. If you're not familiar with this idea of the Windsor Hum, what these people are dealing with up there, and it's happening all over the world, these strange noises that are in the sky. You can go on YouTube and just type it in, strange noises in the sky, or strange, weird noises in the sky, and you will see that many different cities are dealing with this. It could be something mechanical. It could be an industrial type of sound. It could be something that's breaking down. It could be cell towers. Even people have put forth the idea that all of these new cell towers now are creating kind of chaos and havoc in the auditory levels that humans hear. But there may be something more sinister going on, maybe a top secret military base on Zug Island. Maybe there is other types of experiments that are going on. So this filmmaker, Adam, he's going to get to the bottom of it. He's going to be joining me in segment 3. We also got John Burrs and Jay Peroni on deck to bring you all of the good news. But we're going to get kicked off with gold and silver. Here comes our good friend, Tom Cloud.
Follow the Money Weekly presents your precious metals market update. Here's Tom Cloud.
Jerry, this has been that bloodshed week that has always been in the back of our mind that could happen, and certainly we have seen the drop on Friday that a lot of people feared and a lot of other people were looking forward to getting back in the market.
Well, let's take a look at this, because we have gold going down amid bank confiscation over in Cyprus, central bank buying at record numbers, and the most in the last 50 years, and threats of nuclear missiles on the Korean peninsula. All of these things are what drive gold up historically. What's going on?
Well, there's two things going on. We started seeing the shorts with the future contracts that end next Thursday. We started seeing the shorts unwind early in the week, and prices came up a little bit because people were getting out of the shorts. And then once the Cyprus Bank on Thursday decided to sell 10 tons of gold, being the first major central bank to sell gold in 4 years, because everybody else, like you said, is accumulating it. And then I think the news that really broke it was when the ECU said they may ask Italy, Portugal, and Spain and Ireland to do the same thing to firm up their balance sheets where they don't have to go into a Cyprus-type event. And while none of them have liquidated any gold, it has certainly scared the market. Now, if you can imagine next Thursday, I can't imagine anybody shorting gold at $1,500 an ounce and silver at $26.50 an ounce. So we have to believe that today on Friday or Monday or Tuesday, these shorts will unwind, future contracts will expire, and there will not be the purchasing of shorts that we've seen at an all-time high for the April contracts of 2013.
What kind of concerns are you hearing from some of your more informed customers? What are they looking at, and how are they reacting to this news?
Well, there's two reactions. There's a reaction that how stupid are investors to think about selling into this, whether they have paper gold and ETFs or whether they have physical gold. So the first thing my people are telling me in Europe is, Americans are stupid. They look at this thing and act like because it went down $50 that they've lost the money forever, when they don't look around and look at all the positive things of more people wanting to come in, major money waiting on that drop to come. They're only looking at certainly their losses, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I certainly feel that's had a strong comment from the people in Europe. And the other thing on the concern side is, of course, is the data just keeps coming out, that the economy is just barely moving. In spite of this huge quantitative easing around the world economy just has no steam to produce the inflation that it will at some point. And, it's kind of like crying wolf. Some people are tired of hearing the John Williamses and James Sinclairs that are trying to help them. So they're just literally tired of hearing them say that this is it. And, it's getting ready to head back up. So you've got two sides of the equation as to what's going on, but certainly we'll know a whole lot more next week. But we have a lot of people behind the day on Friday, and we have people who wait the weekend out to see if any of the other central banks throw the towel in and liquidate.
Based on the numbers that I have access to, I see that the people who are selling gold, many of them are moving into equities, taking long positions in stocks. It could be dangerous for these people who are becoming all of a sudden bearish on gold when fundamentals favor gold and silver more than almost at any other time, and they don't favor stocks in the long run. I understand the pop in stocks right now. We're in an uptrend because of all the quantitative easing finally taking hold. But this will eventually turn around, and gold and silver will begin their next leg up. When does that happen, do you think?
Certainly we're going into the time people usually say sell in May and go away till September, and then buy in September and hold till next May, and certainly there are people that still do that. But I just got a feel next Thursday when the June contracts, we'll see people going long or just staying on the sidelines. But the main thing that'll do is just stop the downside risk. And we just got to pray today as we tape this that gold stays above 1480. Did get down to 1491 earlier in the day. It's now back to nearly 1510. But certainly 1480 is on the horizon after it broke the support earlier in the day. But I'd say next week, I think it starts back up. Now, I'm not telling you it's going to jump up dramatically, but we flush out a lot of the shorts. We get this central bank stuff absorbed in the market. We're hearing the Chinese is buying all of it, but that has not been confirmed in the media. That's just what I hear from my sources. And that Russia is also trying to, hoping that one of the other countries will sell large quantities because they're buyers also of gold.
Looking at all of the week's action this week, we see the gold took a punishing loss today of 4% so far, and on Friday, it's down about 5% for the week. So that's, that pretty much tells us that Friday was the big day for gold. Silver's down about 5%. It's down to $26.19 an ounce the last time I checked. Maybe it's a little higher now, but that's really something. What about silver at 26? Is now the time to pull the trigger, or what do the charts say?
Yeah, absolutely. There are people out there that think it's going to 23 or 24, and once again, it's not impossible. You learn in this business to never say impossible, but certainly there are a lot of buyers that once it went below 26.50, and once again, we'll know Monday for sure. We're hearing the Stalker, the most famous metals trader in the world out of London, moved into silver today when it broke below 29.25. He went back in the market, and I don't know where it is right this second. But, yeah, you got to look at that as a steal when the U.S. Mint's on a 4-week delay for delivery, the Canadian Mint on a 2-week delay, and Highland Mint on the new rounds on a 10-day, and the Austrian Philharmonic on a 7 to 8-day delivery. So you're seeing how much silver is being bought, and this paper silver game is very volatile, both at the upside and downside. I can remember 2010 clearly as it was yesterday. We went through 8 months of the year, and people says, well, you keep saying this silver's going to fly up, and it went up 60-something% the last 4 months of the year, and ended up 92% for the year in 2010, silver did. And this is one of those years, maybe not quite that dramatic, but certainly you could see silver easily go up 40% from where it is right now with this big drop today on Friday. So I certainly have participated in buying silver today, and once again, I'll probably buy more next week. I just don't think when you look at this year, this is cheap. It may get a little cheaper in the next few days, but once we go by next Thursday, I feel very safe buying silver at this level.
This looks like a big money shakedown by the elites in my estimation, because we've seen a growing short interest in shorts growing and growing and growing, despite the fact that central banks are buying gold at the highest levels and owning gold the highest levels in 50 years. You see the major banks like Goldman Sachs and some other French banks and also even Asian banks coming out to their clients and issuing sell signals on gold and silver, basically shaking loose the market, providing nice entry points for the elites who want to come in and buy this. Because look, Japan is doubling its monetary base. The United States remains fixed upon quantitative easing. You cannot in any way, shape, or form argue that all of this money printing is not going to drive up hard assets.
No, there's no argument about it. it's all a timing situation. And, you know, if you're hoping for much better prices than this, I mean, certainly it's not a place to wait. I mean, it might go down, as we've said 2 or 3 times, but the point, Jerry, that you're making is nothing has changed from the fundamental side. I had a gentleman call this morning that saw my tape I did in February in California, and he said, my gosh, you talked all about this. He said, the fundamentals, you said they might try to shake everything out in the next few months, and said, you're exactly right. He said, but every fundamental chart you put up there to show people that you've got to think long term. By selling, you're doing exactly what the elite and the banking and the establishment want you to do. But certainly, as James Sinclair reported earlier in the week, and we sent out in our email blast, he's now got information that the government wanted to shake it down to buy more gold. They're now going to become a purchaser of gold because everybody realizes the solution to the world economic problem is going to have to go through gold, because it is the only investment in the world that every country can agree on. There is nothing else. So that is going to do it. And, of course, the more gold each country owns, the more say-so and input they're going to have in how the new world economically unfolds over the next decade. So, you know, you just got to have patience. And believe me, I would sell out if I thought the bull market was over, and I haven't sold an ounce, and most of my big clients have not sold any ounces, and about half of them have purchased more.
I would say that if we see central banks becoming net sellers for a sustained period of time, that may indicate that the run is over. Would you agree with that?
I would, Jerry. I would agree. If we saw the central banks going back to where they liquidated 6-10% of their reserves every year, or even one big sale, I would say that might be enough to do it, because China at that time might have enough for the short term that they want. But that hasn't happened yet, and certainly we're going to watch closely to see what Italy, Portugal, Spain, and Ireland do.
But isn't gold acting somewhat strange, even considering the fact that North Korea is being as bellicose and belligerent, and the news cycle has an agenda to spook the American public? It looks like they want to go to war with North Korea. Typically in times like this, you've been doing this for 35 years, normally gold spikes right before a war is threatening to break out. Why is it not going?
I'm going to say to you, it may sound strange, but I have never, the more problems the governments have got you into, whether it's financial problems, deficit problems, war and rumors of war problems, just the public just does not think there's going to be a war. As many people as I talk to on a weekly basis, they'll say to me, I'll say this to them, what you just said is one of the fun, there's no way North Korea will ever shoot. They're not that stupid. They know they'd be blown off the map, so that's not even a consideration. And I said, well, how about Iran? Do you think Iran's not serious about if they get a nuclear warhead using it? Oh, no, they would never do that. But, I mean, the public as a whole has just gotten to where the people that have caused all the problems, they actually think they're going to solve all the problems. And nothing's going to solve the problems except God's money, which is gold. And I still think it's coming. I mean, just don't know the time frame when China's ready to step up and take that reserve currency status. That's what we're waiting on.
I had to take a few extra blood pressure medications whenever I saw that in 2016, it looks like the mainstream press is pushing for a Hillary Clinton on the Democratic ticket, and it looks like they might be trying to push for a Jeb Bush on the Republican side. I cannot handle another Bush-Clinton election. I can't believe that the American people won't wake up and realize what's happening to their country, what's happening to their economy. These elites are driving us into the ground.
They are, Jerry, and that's the hard part. And it's really funny. All the years of talking about that, when it would come up, and I would tell people what I knew, and they could see the conspiracy, they could see it out there. But now all of a sudden they don't even want to hear about it. All they worry about, everything's at risk, and Obama's going to take my 401k, and he's going to take my IRA, and, this the kind of things. And certainly that is very, very serious stuff. Don't get me wrong. But times have just changed. Investors have changed. This electronic world that we live in just makes everything, it's got to be instant satisfaction. And it's just a different world than I've been in the last 35 years. It's just people call and say, gold went down $4 since I bought it 30 minutes ago. You know, can I lower the price $4? We've trained to know once I buy it, I bought it for you using my money, and you got to pay for it. So you have these things that you just never heard of years ago, but the public is just really too electronically tied. They just read and are so wishy-washy rather than just stand in the ground and look at the fundamentals and having patience, knowing what's going to happen.
Okay, my guest today is Tom Cloud. He can be reached at 800-247-2812. That's 800-247-2812. He's a precious metals advisor. He's a dealer with gold and silver, palladium, platinum, even diamonds. You want to talk to him, you can call him. Tom, I'm wondering if you have an opinion on Bitcoin. What's your opinion on this new phenomenon?
I'm staying quiet on Bitcoin. Not a fan of it, but I'm not going to make any statements on it. There's so many people mesmerized by it, but you know, history tells us you got to be very careful. That's about the only comment I'll have on it.
To me, it seems as if it is an improvement on the fiat currency in some ways, but it doesn't have any intrinsic value, and we don't know who created it. I got to throw this out, Tom, because I can't help but think that it's possible that Bitcoin is another one of the banksters' ploys to divert money from the working poor to the elites. I mean, we have no clue who's running this. And
well, you're not the only person that believes that, Jerry, and the reason I won't comment on it is for that reason. I tried hard to find out who owns it, and all you can ever find out is, you know, who's running it, and that means absolutely nothing, and they're in a non-disclosure. They won't disclose any of that pertinent information, so certainly that's the main reason I'm not interested in commenting on it.
Yeah, I totally understand. All right, so why don't you just give us your outlook here for the rest of the year before we let you go on gold, silver, palladium, platinum. If you could put those in order based on how you think the returns are going to stack up at the end of the year, how would you put them in order?
Well, I'll give you an answer, but first let me say you've got to realize that the quantitative easing worldwide and whether it can crank up the world economies and create demand for the industrial metals, platinum, palladium, and then silver's a hybrid. It's an investment in industrial metal. So I think when you look at all that, if you're going to pick which one you think is going to do the best, it's going to be based on whether or not you think the world economy is going to stay out of a recession. And I do, because I think they'll keep printing the money. And even though the figures in the U.S. and China are disappointing coming out, no matter how much they create, it doesn't seem to get the economy growing. At some point, all this money will lead to higher inflation. So with that said, I think the industrial metals, not safety-wise, gold's going to be your winner safety-wise, less volatility. But I do think the winner is going to be palladium, silver, and platinum in that order. I still think because of the hybrid of silver with investors interested that I'm now picking it to be number one by the end of the year from this day forward. And I think palladium will be 2, platinum will be 3, and gold will be 4. But once again, gold could easily be number 1 if bad economic news came and any kind of recession started anywhere worldwide.
Interesting. Why don't you tell the folks how they can get a hold of you, Tom?
They can give me 800-247-2812, and they can email. They can go to FTM Daily if they want on my email blast. That's free service, and we don't share our list with anyone. And they can go to ftmdaily.com and hit the precious metals button and sign up for our email blast if they'd like to.
Yeah, they can go to ftmdaily.com/gold. There you can get all kinds of educational resources that Tom and I have done over the years, and you can also sign up for his email list there. Tom, we have an exciting webinar coming up next week on the 16th. What are you going to be talking about there for the folks who want to sign up for that?
Well, we are going to be talking on this webinar. We are going to be talking about these fundamental things that you got to keep your eye on no matter what the market's doing. You've got to try to use common sense and decide when you're going to go in. It's undeniable when you look at the evidence we'll present on Tuesday night to investors that you know that you got to keep your eye that things are very positive for gold and silver at this point. So we'll be talking about that and certainly how to get money from an IRA into physical gold and silver. And we'll be talking about some of that, and we'll be talking about rare coins not getting lured in by telemarketing firms.
Very good. And we'll also be answering your questions. So come ready to ask questions to Tom Cloud about gold, silver, palladium, platinum, even diamonds. We might even talk a little bit about the diamond market too, just a little update. Tom, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, Jerry. Always a pleasure.
Gold, silver, palladium. If you have questions about or are looking to purchase precious metals, there is one name to know and one name to call. Tom Cloud at 1-800-247-2812. You hear Tom every week on Follow the Money Weekly, and gold and silver are an excellent hedge against inflation. Tom Cloud has over 30 years' experience as a precious metals advisor. Don't buy your precious metals through a call center and pay inflated prices. Call Tom Cloud, 1-800-247-2812. And for a limited time, tell Tom you heard it from Jerry Robinson on Follow the Money Weekly and receive free shipping and insurance on your order. That's right. Mention Follow the Money Weekly and your shipping and insurance charges are waived on your precious metals purchase. If you have a question about something you heard on the show, call Tom. And to secure your precious metals investment, call Tom. Your gold guy, Tom Cloud. 1-800-247-2812. That's 1-800-247-2812. You heard it on Follow the Money Weekly.
Well, joining me on the line today is the president and CEO of Sandstorm Gold and Sandstorm Metals and Energy. His name is Nolan Watson. Mr. Watson is the former CFO of Silver Wheaton Corporation, a mining company listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange and the New York Stock Exchange. In his role at Silver Wheaton, Mr. Watson, who was only 26 years old at the time, helped raise over $1 billion in debt and equity to fund Silver Wheaton's growth. And we all know that Silver Wheaton has been a spectacular success story in many ways. Mr. Watson is a chartered accountant. He's a chartered financial analyst designee, and he has won several honors throughout his young career, including Canada's Top 40 Under 40 award. I personally own one of his companies, Sandstorm Gold, and actually I should say I own two because I also own interest in Sandstorm Metals and Energy. So I'm very excited about this interview today. Nolan, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me on Follow the Money Radio.
Well, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I want to focus on Sandstorm Gold first, that particular company. I'm very intrigued by your company's business model, as I know many people are, and many people don't quite understand. At the simplest level, you're simply trading cash for cash flow. More specifically, you're making an upfront cash payment to a gold mine, and in return, you're receiving a percentage of the gold that is produced over the life of the mine. How did you come up with that model, and how is that unique in the world of mine finance, and why gold?
Yeah, really, the business model was stumbled into back in 2004 when Silver Wheaton was launched. It was originally launched as a value arbitrage model because silver assets were trading at higher than any other commodity in the public capital markets, and this contract was created to effectively find a way to get the value of the silver in a non-silver mine into a company that was pure silver, and it was named Silver Wheaton. And we realized somewhere along the way that lots of companies wanted to do these so-called silver streams because they wanted the capital to go build their mines. And so in 2008, Dave Worm and myself, we left to start up a company called Sandstorm Gold. And we really believe in gold for a number of reasons, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But we believe that this business model is one of the few ways to actually play gold while getting leverage on the precious metal without getting all of the risks associated with investing in companies. And that's really why we do what we do.
Yeah, and I believe in the business model, but there's probably considerable risk in putting up the cash up front and then relying on the cash flow in the future. How do you determine which deals to take, and what's your criteria?
Yeah, there certainly is risk, and I'll be the first to admit that although we have made some capital allocation mistakes in the past, in the vast majority of situations, we have invested in assets that are turning multiples of our original capital. What we're trying to find when we go do an acquisition is an asset that is a younger one that has not been fully explored, so that when we buy X percent of what it's going to produce for the life of mine, and the life of mine turns out being 2 times or 3 times or 5 times or 10 times as long, or if the mine is significantly larger than was originally anticipated, then our shareholders benefit directly. So that's our job, is to basically go find those mines that are high quality, and are going to have significant extension of their mine lives. And the number one reason that they no to a potential investment who is asking us to give them capital for a gold stream is because we think that the mine is going to be too high of a cost of an operator, and that if the gold price comes down temporarily even, then they might not be able to continue to operate. So we try to mitigate those downside risks and expose ourselves to the upside potential.
In preparation for this interview, I was doing a lot of research, on your websites, and I was looking at some of your previous presentations. You gave a speech back in December of 2012, and I found it fascinating. And I know we don't have time to get into the whole thing right now, but my question surrounds the idea of mine finance. You talked about in this speech, and you may remember it, how the whole idea or the whole concept of mining financing or mine financing is dead. What do you mean? How is it dead, and how is the streaming business so much better?
Yeah, well, so what a stream does, to be very specific, and then I'll explain why mine finance is dead, is it's a contract where we get to buy a certain percentage, but we buy it at a fixed price per unit. So what it allows a streamer to do is not have the risk that management make mistakes for the overrun, or that sustaining capital overruns at the mine, or the upfront capital costs overrun at the mine, because the streamer, i.e. Sandstorm, when we make that payment, we then get the stream of cash flow coming back, and the amount of the cash flow is dependent on how long the mine goes, and it's dependent on what the gold price is, but it is not dependent on what it costs to mine. And because of that, that provides a much lower risk profile when we pool all of these investments together, and we have a number of streams coming in from a number of mines in a number of countries around the world. So we're diversified from a political risk perspective, we're diversified from a type of mine perspective, we're diversified from a management team operating the mine perspective, and it allows our shareholders to get a lot of confidence. And because of that, what's happening to the streamers is that shareholders around the world and prospective shareholders are wanting to put a lot of capital to work into the streaming companies themselves. So we've got, even last week was being offered money from large financial funds that wanted to invest in Sandstorm that we turned down. But it's created a situation now where, because the general broader equity markets for mining finance are dead, nobody can raise equity right now except for the streaming and royalty companies. And because the banks are very, very nervous, and there's far too few project financing banks compared to how many projects there are out there, you've got a situation where mining companies, their choice is either sell their asset or develop it with a stream right now, because they can't develop it with equity, and they probably won't be able to develop it with debt. And so historically, and I guess that's what I'm referring to, is historically everyone was putting their projects into production by financing it with either debt or equity, and they can't do that today. So traditional mine finance is dead. It's created a tremendous opportunity for streaming companies like Sandstorm, because the mining companies out there have to look to us for capital. And it's also great in the sense that investors are finally starting to understand what a great business model this is for them to potentially make money. And so they're allocating capital to us. So Sandstorm, we've got lots of ability to bring in capital and lots of ability to deploy capital creatively, and it's a really good position.
Okay, so you were over at Silver Wheaton. In fact, you were the very first employee over at Silver Wheaton. How did they feel whenever you took off and struck out on your own?
Well, I'll be honest. In 2008, when I left to go start up Sandstorm, I was feeling pretty good until the collapse of the end of 2008 happened, and the Great Recession kicked in, and there was a month or two where I was thinking, oh my gosh, what did I just do? But stuck to it. I believed in the business model. We found some really good acquisitions. We launched on those acquisitions, and we went, even at the dark depths of the beginning of 2009, we were able to raise $50 million. In fact, we were the first company to launch itself coming out of the Great Recession, in Canada at least. And it's been tremendously successful for shareholders who did take the risk on us back in 2009.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of the financial press and a lot of the people who kind of monitor the mining business, they kind of look at you as a wonder boy. I mean, you started young. You ever worry about all the pressure that's on you as a up-and-comer? I mean, does that pressure feel strong? I'm sure it does.
Well, it does at times, but I'm one of those people who understands, and I fully believe that everyone has their weaknesses, that they need to acknowledge those weaknesses and understand them. And I've always been one of the people that's first and willing to admit my weaknesses, so I've never had an illusion about my ability to be better than anyone else. I just realized that I have to work harder than everybody else. I've been doing that for my career. And then step 2 is surround yourself by highly competent, highly intelligent people who are also willing to work harder than everybody else.
It looks like you've done that. Do you think just the opportunity of the business model that you have attracts the minds that's needed for this?
I think it's a good business model, and people are attracted to it, but it's also, when you start attracting good people, it becomes easier to attract more good people because they want to hang around people that you've already got.
Okay, Entrée Gold is a major deal that you recently closed, reportedly worth $55 million. They operate a gold mine in one of the largest undeveloped copper gold districts in the world, and it's one of my favorite places. It's in Mongolia. Mongolia has been on my radar, as it has for most economists who've been watching the developing world. It's a massive growth story, one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and you just landed smack dab in the middle of that country. What's the outlook for the Entrée Sandstorm deal? What are you telling investors about it?
Well, it's a transaction I like quite a bit because Oyu Tolgoi, which is one of the world's most amazing copper mines, all of the ground surrounding it is a joint venture between Turquoise Hill and Entrée. And Entrée has a 20% minority joint venture partnership that's fully carried to production. It's a great asset to have. And so what Sandstorm has done is a gold stream on a portion of the gold on all of that joint venture land. So it's basically the same Oyu Tolgoi mine that Turquoise Hill and the Mongolian government have a JV on. We just have the surrounding ground, and eventually they will start mining off of the main Oyu Tolgoi ground onto the Entrée joint venture land, and that's when our deal will start kicking in. And it could run for anywhere from 20 to 80 years, depending on what cutoff grades they use, and it's just a great asset, I think.
Mongolia is not like a China or an India. I mean, they're not nearly as spoiled, so to speak. They're kind of an unspoiled territory, and was it difficult dealing with the Mongolian people? Was it strange? And anything you can tell us about dealing with Mongolia?
Yeah, from the perspective of the Entrée deal, they're actually a Canadian-based parent company, and we did not do the deal directly into Mongolia. We did it from their Canadian parent company to our Canadian parent company. So I did not, in this particular transaction, have to deal with individuals in Mongolia directly. Having said that, I actually cut my teeth in the mining industry as an auditor for Ivanhoe way back in the day, and found myself down multiple times in Mongolia working down there. And it's a very, very interesting place. It's a unique culture. There's an enormous amount of potential from a mineral wealth perspective, and it's a place to keep watching from a mining perspective.
It sounds like you've got about a 10-year horizon here where you're not going to get anything back for at least about a decade, right?
Yeah, it's approximately 10 years till we'll get our first production from it. So I would imagine Sandstorm shareholders will start attributing value to it beginning sort of 5 years from now, when they can actually see that production coming in. But in the long term, I'm a big believer in continued quantitative easing and money printing and debasement of currencies. And so the reason I love doing some of these really long-dated transactions where you could have production for 80 years is we fix the amount that we pay in U.S. dollars per ounce. And in this case, 30 years from now, we would be paying $400 or something thereabouts per ounce. And I believe 40 years from now, the U.S. dollar won't be worth very much. So it's basically like getting free gold instead of having to pay for it.
You got a problem with Ben Bernanke?
No, he's my best friend.
Yeah, he's not a friend of our crowd for sure. I'm sure he makes life a little sweet, though, for the gold mining business, you would think. But when you take a look at what's been happening to the gold mining business overall, we could go into that for hours. But your share price, Sandstorm's share price, has really dropped along with all the other mining companies. And I know you're a streaming company, but still, same industry. To what do you attribute the recent share price decline? What do you expect in the near term? I know it's hard to break out the crystal ball, but what do you think? What's going on here? Why are gold mining stocks, including yours, going down in this environment?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things going on. One is most of the funds are continually surprised by how much the cost escalation in the mining industry has been, and margins have been squeezed dramatically. And mining companies that thought they were going to be having $800 per ounce gross margins are now finding themselves at $200 per ounce gross margins and shrinking. And what's happening is a lot of capital is fleeing the sector, thinking if it continues on in this trend, pretty soon nobody's going to be making any money, and I don't want to be investing in an industry that's not making any money. And Sandstorm, I think, gets caught indiscriminately in that downdraft, people not realizing that we don't have that same cost increase exposure. I think the flip side of it, too, is that there's a number of funds out there that I talk to that believe that the U.S. has everything in hand and that there won't need to be much more quantitative easing, and the U.S. dollar is strong and worth a lot, and it's going to continue to get stronger, and why would you want to own gold in that sector? And there's some people selling gold for that reason. I think those people in the long run will be proven to be wrong, but that's just my opinion.
You're the CEO also of another company that you started, Sandstorm Metals and Energy, and this company is the world's first diversified, as you describe on the website, the first diversified streaming company, having already acquired a portfolio of 4 commodity streams: copper, natural gas, and palladium. Okay, what's the outlook for this company in terms of new deals in the works and the future cash flow? I know you had something with Entree, but also with this company. This company, to me, seems like the Sandstorm's gold company sounds great. I mean, I get it. It's like Silver Wheaton. In fact, you're improving on that model. But this particular company, Sandstorm Metals and Energy, I can't help but think that you have really, for a lack of a better term, you've struck gold here with this particular company. Are you the only company like this? I know you're the first.
Yeah, to the best of our knowledge, we are the only company like this. And this is one of those business models where you can use down-and-out commodities, or you can invest in down-and-out commodities when you have cash flow from commodities that are doing strong. So the more diversified you get, the more ability you have to actually outperform the market, because you can always be using cash flow from high-priced commodities to buy cash flow and low-priced commodities. And I'm particularly excited about it. Our first stream that we think will be coming online here should be coming online at the last part of this year. It's a zinc mine with copper byproduct, and we've done the copper byproduct stream on it. And we did the deal with a company called Donner Metals, which is a minority joint venture partner of Xstrata. So Xstrata is actually building the mine right now. They're almost done building it. Xstrata is going to be operating it, and we get a significant chunk of the copper byproduct, and we only have to pay 80 cents a pound for the copper, and we think we'll get to buy several million pounds a year. So we should make a substantial amount of capital just on that one stream, and then we have a palladium stream kicking in, and then a natural gas stream, and then in the longer term, the Entree one.
What other kind of energy are you looking at in the future besides natural gas?
Well, right now it's mostly natural gas. We have looked at a few oil opportunities. We find that oil is fairly well banked in terms of lots of financial institutions and lots of capital are looking for oil investment opportunities. So we're mostly looking in the natural gas space right now, in particular because natural gas prices are still pretty low compared to what it costs to produce it.
Got it. Okay. I got one final question for you. I know you got to run, and I know we're running out of time here. You were the youngest CFO of a multi-billion-dollar market cap company, Silver Wheaton. You've since launched 2 multi-million-dollar companies. You've sat at the board of directors for Gold Wheaton and Bear Creek Mining. You were listed as one of the top 10 rising stars in the natural resource sector by Casey Research, who's very well respected in the area. How did you manage to do all this at such a young age?
Well, I think hard work is the key, and remaining humble through the whole thing, which is easy to do when you have a wife who is your high school sweetheart and you have 3 daughters at home. And I think the more amazing feat is being able to keep my sanity with 3 daughters at home. But it's been good. It's been fun.
Do you attribute that to your humility? I mean, do you stay humble, or do you have to fight that? I would imagine you probably have to fight that with all the success you've had.
Well, it's both. My wife always had a saying. She says, Nolan, when things are going really well for you, remember you're not quite as good as everybody tells you you are. And Nolan, remember when things are going bad for you, you're not quite as bad as everybody tells you you are.
Oh, she's a smart woman. That's a great, that's a great, I tell you what, you always remember that and you're going to be fine. That's a great way to think about it. My guest today, Nolan Watson. How can they learn more about Sandstorm Metals and Energy, and how can they learn more about Sandstorm Gold? Just tell us about it.
Yeah, the best way to do it is just start by going to the website, which is www.sandstormltd.com, and both the companies are listed there on that landing page. And then feel free to phone us anytime. If you have questions, just phone our Vice President of Investor Relations or pick up the phone and grab any one of us. We're happy to answer questions.
Great. Nolan, it's really been an honor and a pleasure to have you on the program. I really thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, and I want to inform our listeners once again, just for good disclosure, to let you know that we do indeed own shares in both Sandstorm Gold and Sandstorm Metals and Energy. Sandstorm Gold is held within our PACE investment portfolio, and we've held it on and off over the last year or so. And also Sandstorm's Metals and Energy is a personal holding of mine, something that I hold. This interview was not a solicitation for Sandstorm stock, but instead was to inform and educate and alert you to an interesting concept and business model. Remember, always do your own due diligence before investing in any company or asset.
Jay Peroni, Certified Financial Planner, here with the idea of the week. This week, we'll take a look at an all-weather stock that's been raising its dividend for 42 straight years, a high-end furnishing company that's been able to grow in good times and in bad. Even with a slow economy over the past few years, this high-end furnishing company's been able to deliver a strong dividend and impressive returns. Innovative furnishings, especially sleep technology, have been more than just a fad. This industry has been steadily growing despite tough times because homes, offices, and hotels have constant needs for beds, tables, sofas, carpet, and other furnishings. Even though these needs are not necessities like food, water, or clothing, the demand for quality furnishings bucked the downward trend experienced by many retailers. When the recession was in full motion in 2008 and 9, one would think that high-end furnishing companies would have experienced a major downturn. Yet this company produced a positive return during those 2 years. The demand for furnishings did not follow the same fate as the overall economy. Steady and new improvements along with technological innovations with sleep technology have allowed this furnisher to stay relevant, improve their products, and make them more desirable to its customers. The company I'm referring to is Leggett & Platt, ticker symbol LEG. This was founded way back in 1883. It's not only stood the test of time, but it's also thrived during turbulent times. Its success has been its diversification with 20 different business units, over 18,000 employees and partners, and 130 facilities in 18 different countries. Its main focus is on hospitality products, bedding, manufacturing, machinery, wiring, and some store fixtures. Leggett & Platt has 4 different business segments. It's got its residential furnishings, where the company has bedding, accessories, carpet cushion, mattress springs, and much more. They've got their industrial materials division. They specialize in shaped wire, coated wire products, and erosion control products. Then they've got their commercial fixtures and components. They make retail store fixtures and point-of-purchase displays. And lastly, they've got their specialized products division. They make various products like automated seating support, comfort systems. In addition, they've been involved in state-of-the-art quilting, sewing, and wire forming equipment used in bedding and vehicles. Leggett & Platt, ticker symbol LEG, is a good buy up to $35 a share. Best yet, it pays a 3.5% dividend. They've got a solid business strategy, strong growth. The stock could hit 40 to 45 within the next 12 months due to the steady demand for home, office, and hotel furnishings. Again, that one is Leggett & Platt, ticker symbol LEG. Worth a closer look. This is Jay Peroni, Certified Financial Planner, signing off for the idea of the week. We'll see you again next week.
All right. Well, Jay Peroni is a CFP, Certified Financial Planner, a member of our Christian Financial Advisor Network, and he also manages our very own PACE investment portfolio. If you would like to have a free 30-minute review of your investments with Jay, you can call him at 888-664-6963. That's 888-664-6963. And when you do, be sure to tell him you heard about him on Follow the Money Weekly Radio.
Are you tired of getting whiplash from the stock market? Is the return of your money more important than getting a return on your money? In these difficult economic times, it's only natural to seek out wise investing counsel. Thanks to a new service called the All-Weather Portfolio Strategy, you'll get real-time access to our service, which only invests in high-quality companies with historically low volatility. Have you ever been caught in the rain without an umbrella or left the house without sunscreen on a hot and humid day? Sometimes the weather catches us by surprise. Just like the weather, the investment markets can also catch us by surprise, and sometimes without warning. There are times when the markets soar and we miss out on gains, or maybe we have too much in the market and suffer a major decline during volatile times. That's why we created the All-Weather Portfolio Strategy. The All-Weather Portfolio is suitable for cautious investors, those with a time horizon of 5 to 7 years, those who are close to or in retirement. The goal of the all-weather portfolio is to protect against losses in a down market while still taking advantage of the markets when they rise. With the all-weather portfolio service, you'll get 24 hours, 7-day-a-week real-time access to the portfolio. You receive instant buy and sell alerts directly in your email inbox. You'll also get a special 27-page report entitled An Introduction to High-Quality, Low-Volatility Investing, a $47 value. To learn more about the all-weather portfolio, go to wallstreetrenegade.com/all-weather. Again, that's wallstreetrenegade.com/all-weather.
All right, well, here to help us and provide his insights on what might be going on all around the world, but especially in one place in particular, up in Windsor, is my next guest. He's a Toronto-based artist, a filmmaker who has turned to the internet to raise funding for his upcoming documentary entitled Zug Island, The Story of the Windsor Hum. His name is Adam Makarenko. Adam, thanks for joining me on Follow the Money Weekly Radio.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to join you.
Now, Adam, explain to us what is going on. Now, you're up in Windsor. First of all, tell us where that's at and tell us why you're there.
Well, Windsor, Ontario is located just across from Detroit, Michigan. And I'm up there because there's a hum coming from an island called Zug Island. So basically, Windsor, Ontario is right across from Detroit, Michigan. And there's a river going through called the Rouge River that separates both countries, basically, Canada and the U.S. And I went up there because there was a hum coming from the U.S. side from a place called Zug Island. And this hum started about 2 years ago. And I caught wind of it about a year ago on the internet. I was listening to something on YouTube and I heard about it, and it really piqued my interest. So I went down there and I started investigating it, and it's been intriguing ever since.
Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from a small northern community in Ontario, the province of Ontario, which is basically just above Minnesota, if you could put the geography in that way.
Mm-hmm. So you traveled down to Windsor, and because you saw on the internet about this hum that was kind of, and a lot of this stuff is going on around the world. Do you think that this is similar to what other claims are occurring around the world, or do you think this is an isolated incident, a very different kind of incident?
I don't think any of the hums are all that different from each other. There are different nuances to each hum in each part of the world. There's the Taos hum, now there's the Windsor hum, there's a Bristol hum in England, and there's probably a lot more that I don't even know about. But these could be created from natural phenomena. They could be coming from industry with new processes. And, you know, a lot of people have heard about the windmills that are creating these sounds, but no one really knows the true, like, adverse effects of these hums over long periods of time, since it's a relatively new phenomenon.
I want to play a little clip from your trailer for the film where you're actually interviewing some local residents. Let's roll that tape.
We moved out from the county, and we moved here, and I thought, oh, this is a nice, quiet neighborhood, and it was in the beginning.
Zug Island is to the west of Windsor. It is on the American side.
Why it's under Homeland Security, I don't know. I think there's only two ways to get on the island, and they're both heavily guarded. We can't get on there. We know we can't. There's a lot of people that live there can't get on the island.
It's a very dangerous place to be. And there have been many, many accidents.
The first time I heard it, I was out back. I heard the rumble, and I thought, beautiful outside. Skies were clear. I thought, well, there must be a storm over the lake.
I started really first noticing the sound about 2 years ago.
It feels like it's going right through your chest.
And you get that sick feeling in your stomach.
You wake up and you're wondering, did I just have one of those dreams? Because you're feeling this boom, boom, boom.
And it sounds like a furnace to me that doesn't stop running.
We're kind of on the cusp of the city here, and it's a fantastic area without that hum.
People say, well, how do you like LaSalle? And I said, don't move here.
You know, you like to think that in your home, you're in your own castle.
we hope to stay here. This was our retirement home.
There just seems to be a lot more secrecy that happens across the river.
I wish we had some answers.
All right, so Adam, you've had a chance to obviously interview some of the residents living in the Windsor area and around Detroit. What is the common theme or common thread that you're seeing amongst all of these people? They're all certainly upset that their housing values are probably dropping. I know even some of the reports I saw, people are considering leaving the area because this hum is that serious. It's really driving people berserk.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I talked to one of the local counselors just recently in Windsor, and he had a neighbor move away because the hum was bothering him that much. But it's such a strange phenomenon because you can live in one house and be totally affected by it and susceptible to it. But the house next door, your neighbor, they don't hear it and it doesn't even bother them. So it's really strange in that sense, too, that these hums, certain people can tune into them and others can't. So a lot of people just dismiss this and think, well, I don't hear it, so it can't be there. But it is actually there, and it is affecting percentage of the population to a great degree, where people are actually lying in bed at night and they're feeling this pulsing going through their body and beds vibrating.
Their beds are vibrating and they feel pulses going through their body?
Yes. That's coming across the river.
Now, whenever you went down from Ontario down to Windsor, when you first went in, you'd seen the video online, you went down to kind of check out the place and kind of do some recon on it before you brought your team down to actually do a documentary. What did you sense? Did you hear it? Did you feel it?
Well, the only time I actually heard it when I was on the U.S. side, right beside Zug Island, in a place called Delray Park. So I really wanted to know what was going on. So one of the things I had to do was head over to the U.S. side and kind of explore the shores or the area around Zug Island. And that area is called Delray, and it's completely abandoned and there's nothing there. So it's kind of an interesting place. But I was standing on a place where people go fishing. It's called Delray Park, which is pretty close beside Zug Island. I had already been down to Windsor and Detroit a few times, and I'd never heard this hum. And so I was starting to think, like, I don't even hear this thing. But then when I was standing there one afternoon, I finally felt it and kind of heard it. The frequency is so low that it's almost like you feel it more than you hear it. So I started to understand right at that moment. I was like, wow, once you feel that, you know, it's nothing else like it.
That's very bizarre. And I would imagine that many people there are concerned about possible health risks with this. Has there been any kind of investigation as to if this is unhealthy for the residents?
I think I've talked to a few scientists, and there's not been any definitive studies done on this sort of phenomena. I mean, I think it is more of a new thing worldwide, but it definitely affects people, the biorhythms and the natural frequencies in your body. So there's going to be studies done on that in time, and people are going to find out that, no, it's not really good for you.
I saw the University of Windsor had received about $60,000 in federal funding to investigate the source of the mysterious noises I guess they have like 10 months to do it. The research is being headed up by a mechanical engineering professor named Peter Brown. Are you collaborating with Brown and his team?
No, I was advised not to interrupt their study until they're done, which is probably 10 months from now. So I'm not going to know anything of really what they're doing. They might do an interview with me, but so far I think I need to just let them do their thing. But I'm going to be setting up some of my own test equipment, hopefully, as well. Yeah, these studies that are being done, there was one study that was done over a year ago before the study that's happening right now, and the Canadian government sent down 3 seismologists to the area, and they did a few months. They studied it, and they actually triangulated and pinpointed that the sound was coming from Zug Island. So I had thought, well, they figured it out. They know where it's coming from. But for some reason, that is not acceptable anymore, and now they're using new testing equipment, different testing equipment, and they're actually retesting to see where the sound is coming from. So I find that really bizarre, where they've already done the test, they know it's coming from a certain area, but now they're going back and they're testing it again for some reason.
When do you plan on releasing this film?
The release date is not set because I still, we need to raise the funds to actually get all the groundwork done. It's
expensive to put a film together like that, isn't it?
It's extremely expensive to put a film together.
Yeah.
We're doing it the bare bones, like I'm a one-man operation. I have my producer and myself, and then that's it. So we're doing the best we can because I really believe in the story. So, no one's making any money off this. We just need to raise some money so that we can actually be on the ground, do work there, rent camera equipment, hire some crew every once in a while if I have to be in some of the scenes.
So you've described this upcoming film on the pitch sheet that I saw as a real-life X-File, an investigative documentary jam-packed with stakeouts, surveillance, mixed with a series of interviews from residents and scientific experts. What do you think that you're going to find? What do you think is the source of this sound?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know what the source of the sound is, and that's why I want to do all the investigation, and I want to look into it and I don't want to speculate exactly what it is, but it could be, an industrial sound that's happening. But the island's been up and running, and the steel mill's been there for at least for over 40 years. But the sound's only been happening in the last 2 years. And like I said in my pitch, that's the thing that really piques my interest. Like, all of a sudden, you have this strange sound coming from a place that was already industrial. So what has happened that's changed so much? So, and I've talked to a worker on the island. He said they've never done it or built anything new there. So it's not like some new facility. So it's just strange. Like, it could be coming from the ground. It could be from the salt mines. So there's a lot of theories. And one of the things is I'm kind of helping out the residents of the town. So the thing they're worried about the most is the integrity of, they don't want to be written off as like, hey, this is like some strange phenomena, okay, whatever. And then, the government ignores them. They want to keep the integrity up with the project. So I want to kind of follow the lead with them on that kind of angle of it. But whatever comes out of it, we'll find the truth. Is
Homeland Security guarding the island?
Well, Homeland Security is definitely 100% around that island. And now, the reason for that is probably has to do with all the gas lines coming into that coke facility. So what they do on the island is actually take the raw iron pellets and mix it in with gases and other things to create the steel. So on a molten level, basically. So I think, after everything on that border and everything on every border kind of heightened. So it could have something to do with that as well.
Got it. Okay, why don't you describe, because we're running out of time, I want you to describe what crowdfunding is, because many of our audience are small business owners, and they hear that, you just up and took off from town, and you went down to Windsor, and you're doing this documentary, and you're raising money online. I think it's a really neat story. How did you do that, and how does all that work? What is crowdfunding?
So, basically crowdfunding, what it does is it allows you a platform where you can put your project, pitch your project, tell them what you want to do, where the money's going to go, and then hope for the best with people that in your networks or people that you don't know that are going to fund the project for you. Because the traditional way is to go through a broadcaster or other types of funding platforms. But the problem nowadays is that money's not there anymore.
Have you done this before? Have you crowdfunded before?
I've never crowdfunded, but I did a lot of research before I went on. And I actually... Kickstarter's great. Indiegogo's pretty good too. So,
is it Kickstarter.com?
Yeah, that's one of them, but I'm on Indiegogo.
Indiegogo.com. Okay, Indiegogo.com. All right, so if people are listening to this and say, this is kind of interesting to me, I'd like to help this guy, throw in $100 or something, or throw in $10. Explain what they get if they do, and explain how they can do that.
Right, yeah. So there's all kinds of reward systems. So when you donate, there's some incentive we give back. We're doing some T-shirts. We're doing some one-of-a-kind books that we're going to make from production stills and the miniatures that I'm going to make for the film as well. So there's something to give back for the money that's going in. And then, of course, everybody that donates is going to get a credit for sure. And they're going to get updates, and they're going to be able to follow the progress of the film, which is probably going to be pretty exciting because it's quite a mystery.
It really is. How can people donate to you? Where do they go online?
They can donate by going to the Indiegogo.com and basically searching out Zug Island. So if they do that, that'll take them straight to it. No one else is doing a Zug Island.
Right.
There's one more thing I just wanted to plug in there, because the difference with this documentary for me is that, you see, this is a standard documentary in the sense of investigative journalism and interviews and stuff like that, but it's also, I'm using miniature sets and dioramas that I'm known for. I'm using these to actually help illustrate parts of the story. Yes. Just as somebody would use like computer graphics in a documentary, but instead I'm going to do real 3D, handmade 3D.
Yeah, so instead of the regular, is it CGI effects that they use? I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, instead of using those, you're actually building miniature sets and then filming those sets and then making them appear lifelike. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah,
so it's just a different way of kind of trying to tell the story, but it's a way that I know how to do it.
Yeah, I was looking at some of your work online. It's pretty neat stuff. All right, Adam Makarenko joining us on Follow the Money Radio. If you want to learn more about him and his work, you can go to Indiegogo.com, type in Zug Island, and it'll give you plenty of detail about how you can invest in the film, how you can help spread the message about this. Good stuff, Adam. I want to have you back once the documentary's all completed and you can give us a report of your findings.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Where's my money? Money. Daily bread.
Follow the Money Weekly presents the Retirement Minute.
Hello, everyone. This is John Burse with this week's Retirement Minute. April is Financial Literacy Month, so I decided to ask my attorney what the most important documents are that every adult-age person should have to make sure they protect their estate. Since I'm not an attorney and do not give legal advice, I thought I would take the month of April and share with you what he told me. So for the month of April, I'm going to talk about 5 important documents that you need to have. Last week, I talked about the first 2 important documents, having a will and a letter of instruction. So if you missed last week, you can go to the ftmdaily.com Retirement Minute Archives to catch up. This week, I will discuss the importance of an advance medical directive. Advanced medical directives let others know what medical treatment you would want, or allow someone to make medical decisions for you in the event you can't express your wishes yourself. If you don't have an advanced medical directive, medical care providers must prolong your life using artificial means if necessary. With today's technology, physicians can sustain you for days and weeks, if not months or even years. There are 3 types of advanced medical directives, and each state allows only a certain type or maybe all 3 types. You may find that 1, 2, or all 3 types are necessary to carry out all of your wishes for medical treatment. So check with your state to make sure you know what is required. Just make sure all documents are consistent. The first type is a living will, which allows you to approve or decline certain types of medical care, even if you will die as a result of that choice. In most states, living wills take effect only under certain circumstances, such as terminal injury or illness. Generally, one can be used only to decline medical treatment that serves only to postpone the moment of death. In those states that do not allow living wills, you may still want to have one to serve as evidence of your wishes. The second type, a durable power of attorney for health care, which is also known as a health care proxy in some states. It allows you to appoint a representative to make medical decisions for you. You decide how much power your representative will or won't have. And then finally, the third type, a do not resuscitate order, is a doctor's order that tells medical personnel not to perform CPR if you go into cardiac arrest. There are 2 types of do not resuscitate orders. One is effective only while you are hospitalized. The other is used while you are outside the hospital. So make sure your financial house is in order. And the best way to start is by contacting me at 888-914-9909. And I would be more than happy to review your financial situation with you.
All right, friends. Well, that brings us to the end of our program. Thank you so much for choosing to allow me into your life each and every week. You know, I know you have a lot of choices out there, and you only got so much time, so thanks for giving me an hour each and every week. It truly is an honor and a privilege. Leave you with this final word, as always, this time spoken by, who knows, it's anonymous. Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Just something to think about. Remember, friends, when you want the truth about the global economy, just follow the money. Have a safe and prosperous week, and I'll see you right back here next weekend. God bless.
The views and opinions expressed by the guests on Follow the Money Weekly do not necessarily represent the views of FTMDaily.com or Makers Group Financial, LLC. Even though these are proven strategies, Jerry Robinson is not a financial advisor, and his guests are not legal or tax advisors. You should always consult a trained financial advisor and or tax advisor before making any financial decisions. John Burrs is a registered representative of and does offer securities through Sycor Securities Incorporated. Lifetime Decisions Management Incorporated is not a subsidiary of nor controlled by Sycor Securities Incorporated.